Hi, Toby, and welcome to Talking Sit. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Yes, very good, thank you. So the way I like to start these episodes is I will just get you basically to introduce yourself. So some listeners will know who you are, some won't. So just tell us a bit about you and your work, and then we'll crack on to the topic of today.
Amazing. Yeah, no, absolutely. So I am Toby Craze and I run Craze Dog Training. So I'm a certified dog trainer and I specialize in overseas rescues. So that is my bag. Foreign rescues from everywhere. That's how I actually started getting into dogs. Actually, I started working in a rescue was my first job with dogs, and it was a rescue specialized in dogs from Romania. It was a bit of baptism by fire, really, because I had a background in animal behavior, did animal behavior at uni, I did animal management as soon as I left school. So I had a background in animals and grew up with dogs, as most of us do. But nothing could have prepared me for the relearning that I had to do when I started working with foreign rescues. Yeah, it was a really, really cool time. But yeah, I was very thankful that I started working with foreign rescues in particular because it's kind of set me up very well for kind of all dogs now, because going through that for a number of years has really set me up for private clients with dogs from wherever or dogs from the UK. So yeah, that is a sort of a little bit about me, a tiny little bit of background as to where I am.
Amazing. I don't know about you, but a few of my clients have either kind of actually transitioned into becoming a dog trainer or actually just taking a very special interest because of the amount of knowledge. When your dog has complex behavior problems, the amount that you have to learn about looking after them, they get to a certain point and then they're like, hell, I might just I might as well just do this for a job because I've spent 4 years studying it to help my dog or whatever. It sounds like you kind of had a similar situation where you're just like, well, I'm working with foreign
Yeah.
rescues now. We're jumping in with both feet.
Yeah, pretty much like that. And that was how it went actually, because I worked in adoptions, but I wasn't a behaviorist or trainer or anything. And I realized that unless I did something to help these dogs, they weren't going to get adopted. So it kind of started off with,
Yeah.
I've got to make these dogs more adoptable. And then I was like, oh, I actually really like this, and I'm pretty good at it. And it kind of like snowballed from there. But the same, yeah, I've had clients where they've finished like programs with me, and they've been like, I'm actually gonna start studying to become a dog trainer now. Do you have any recommendations of where I should go?
Yeah, yeah, that happens to me too, and it's really nice when it happens. But yeah, sometimes I'm a bit like, well, you're struggling because you can't because you're so the next thing I like my guests to do
Hold on, 2 seconds. It's just got a bit like the sounds just got a bit funny. Hold on.
don't worry, no, that's fine. Are you okay? I'll just get my I have someone editing, so
Oh, nice. Okay, it's gone back to normal now. It just went like really like feedbacky, but it's all good.
okay, fine. Don't worry, just stop me again if it happens, and we'll just wait for it to correct itself. Okay, so I will ask the question again.
Cool.
So the next thing I like to do, Toby, is ask people about what pets they have. So do you want to tell me about any pets that you have?
Yes, of course. So I have a family dog. So here in Cornwall, I have my family that live nearby, and we have a complete mix. Unknown, looks like a spaniel cross Dachshund. That's what he looks like, but unknown. Never done a DNA test or anything like that. And he's called George, and he's going to be 7 this year. I've been in and out of his life because I've been a bit of here, there, everywhere. But yeah, I absolutely love him, and we have a very, very, very special bond. And then me and my partner are both dog trainers, and my partner has a rescue from Ukraine called Nova. And Nova is actually moving down from my partner's family home to our home no, this weekend actually. So yeah, this weekend. So she'll be moving down with us, and she'll be living the Cornish life, which we're really excited to give her. Like loads of open spaces, beaches, greenery, country. Oh yeah, we're really, really looking forward to that. And she's fantastic. Really, really, really great dog.
Oh, that's so sweet. And yeah, I think a lot of these dogs, and obviously we'll get more into the reasons why, but a lot of them would benefit from that kind of open, free running, loads of open space type lifestyle. So good luck to Nova. Okay, so you've told us a little bit about your work already, sort of like previously, I guess. So what's like a typical work week for you now?
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I've transitioned all my work to online actually, and the reason for that is because I work with mostly street dogs, And when I was in rescue, it was a lot easier for me as a man to be able to interact with the dogs that I worked with because they almost got like trauma bonded to me, and I was spending like 9 hours a day with them, and we had a
Mm.
really special relationship. When you transition that to outside the rescue environment and you're working with private clients who have mostly street dogs, they're not big fans of men. So me turning up to do in-person sessions, it could be like 4 or 5 sessions before I could even get in the door. So it just made sense to transition to online because I was able to help people in a hands-off way. And I had some online clients that turned into in-person clients. But even now, I still mostly do online clients, and that's for clients all around the world. So I've been dotted a bit of here, there, and everywhere. So I was in Thailand for 8.5 months. So I had clients from all around the world still. I have my UK clients, and I had clients from various different places. And it's just kind of stayed that way, to be honest. I do have a couple in-person clients, but mostly it's all online. So, working weeks for me is, firing up my laptop in the morning and running through an extensive load of videos. So everything is done through video feedback, video observation, feedback to clients in that way. So yeah, it's a lot of going through videos, but I love it because actually going through it online means that I'm able to sit down, cup of coffee, focus entirely on the videos, and then my clients can then actually go back through those videos again, but they're having a cup of coffee, going through the video that I've sent back, and then they see that, they apply their changes, they go out and take another video, they send me it over again. So online training has just been really, really great for me. I used to have it where I was like, well, I'll take on loads of clients because of being online, but actually now I cap it now because I love to do the videos so much. And sometimes when I take a day off, I have sometimes 30 videos, sometimes from individual clients. So dedicating the time to that is what I really want to do and prioritize. So I cap that. So yeah, mostly online behavior work and training work now. I'd say that I've mostly, I rarely have clients where I'm teaching things like loosely walking and stuff like that. Often it's a byproduct. I'd say it's mostly the work that I do is to do with reactivity, and then of course that ties into the street dog behavior, which we'll talk about. But yeah, anything kind of like street dog related, which is usually on-lead reactivity, visitor-directed aggression, or sometimes aggression directed to people actually in the household, which is
Yeah.
always a troubling one for people. But yeah, that's the kind of stuff I do at the moment. That's what my working week entails, is helping people through those things.
Nice. Well, I'm happy to tell you that you might be able to make some extra money because I would love to be able to transition some of my work online, but have failed enormously in being able to do so. And I love seeing my clients in person, and I wouldn't change that at all. But I would love to be able to go traveling for a little bit and still be able to work.
Mm.
So maybe you can help me with that.
Sure,
Anyway,
sure.
we're not here to coach Jade through her business model. And if you are a client of mine, I love seeing you in person. Don't be offended. I'm curious, Toby, what is your theory? I know what mine is as to why so many dogs, particularly overseas rescues, struggle with men more than they do with women.
Yeah, so I mean, it starts before they're even born. Just like genetically through epigenetics, generation to generation. Unfortunately, men aren't very kind to dogs in the places where street dogs are usually prevalent. Actually, if you look across the board of all animals, it is typically men who are not so great to animals, kind of across the board. So you've got that learning aspect, which then just gets passed on through the genetics. But then, when the pups are born, if they're born on the streets, there are some horrendous things that are done to them by men, and then if they survive that, they then carry that trauma, which then has a overspill effect into when they are into their adoptive homes. And it ranges from the dog catchers are mostly men, and most of the men who are mistreating the dogs in the shelters. It's all of that. It's typically women are much better with animals. I've had that all the way kind of I was going through university and college. It was only a small percentage of us guys in the classes and things like that. So
Mm.
it's typically a female-dominated industry, and rightly so, because women are definitely better to animals, I feel, than men across the board in general. So yeah, that would be the reason why. And unfortunately, unfortunately with the dogs that are adopted out, they can have a traumatic experience with a man, say like in Romania, for example. But then that is then carried over to sometimes the nicest men I've ever met. I've had clients
Yeah.
who's met like the men in the house. have no ego whatsoever, super kind, super patient, but the dogs just have a massive barrier up due to that
Yeah.
previous trauma, either that they've experienced personally or due to those genetics. So yeah,
Mm. Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. Obviously there's cultural elements of it. Typically the way that makes most sense to explain to clients, like you say, is quite often they'll have no contact with people, and then the first human that they ever encounter is whipping them off the street into the back of a van and driving them for 4 days. And that's the person they see the other end as well. And if that's your only experience thus far with people, normally a big guy in a big black coat with a I can't remember what they call the catching poles.
yeah.
That's going to be pretty scarring. Particularly, the age that some of them are coming over. That's been their only exposure. Um, okay, so you've said about the behaviours that you see most frequently from overseas rescue dogs, and I have to agree with you. Quite often, reactivity both to people, to other dogs,
Yeah.
to cars, to bikes, and in the home as well. Um, So I don't know if you think of it. I tend to find that generally they're quite good at being left. Quite often they
Yeah,
enjoy being
yeah,
left alone.
yeah, yeah,
So that's the bonus.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and then I've seen some resource guardy cases as well. I don't know if that's common for you. And obviously, we can sort of explain that to people by saying that they've never had such high value things before. They've never had things
Mhm.
in abundance. So of course you're going to be a bit more precious about those things. Have we missed anything, you think?
No, because I think again when it comes to on lead reactivity, it's always like the on lead part as well. Like because they're
Mm,
used to even if they're in shelter environments, where their movements are restricted, they are still pretty free roaming, coming and going kind of as they please, making distance from people, distance from things that are scary outside of the shelter. They're not really because there isn't really loads of resources and time where the shelter workers are taking the dogs out on leads, harnesses, and exposing them to things. So they
hmm
never really experience that stuff. So then when the first time they encounter it on lead, they're like, what the hell? Like, this is terrifying. And actually, I can't escape. And then, they resort to, then the flight cues are all gone. They resort to fight response or freeze response. But yeah, resource guarding, yeah, that's one that can pop up. And I love that you said there about they're pretty good at being left on their own. So yeah, in my experience, I don't work with separation anxiety. It's definitely not a specialty of mine, but I've had clients that have come to me with bits of separation anxiety, but I'd say it's a very, very small percentage. And I'd say even throughout the dogs that I worked with and adopted out, that was often quite like a USP where it was just like, yeah, they're pretty good at being left on their own. They're happily independent and keep themselves to themselves. You don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, from a treatment perspective, I think getting people to understand actually with these dogs that quite often the option for them to be at home, left alone on their own, they would much prefer that than to go to the pub with you.
Yeah,
So sometimes that's a sort of easy win for clients, isn't it? Just by saying, hey, like you don't need to feel bad about leaving this dog at home. I've never seen a happier dog than when he's like sprawled out on
yeah,
the sofa, with no humans to bother him, nothing to worry about. I've just remembered as well, I often get car travel as a problem, which again is
yeah,
completely explained by the whole thrown in the back of a van sort of
yeah,
thing. Um, so I you and I could talk about all the fancy stuff until the cows
yeah.
come home in terms of epigenetics and all of that stuff. But for listeners who aren't scientists, aren't behaviorists, potentially have never met a street dog before or are going to get one or whatever, can you give me in the simplest terms, as in like don't take 4 hours, even though we know it could, explain how that sort of early life and the catching and the transportation and everything that gets them to the point of being in a home leads to the behaviors that we see. That was the
For sure.
longest question ever, sorry.
Yeah, you said short response. I gave you the longest question.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No. So I mean, if we think about it, like if you think if you a human being that had to go through all that stuff, right? So imagine mum died, left as a baby, kind of on the streets, and then scooped up, taken to a super busy shelter, possibly also already injured, already has early disease as well. Super busy shelter, lots of noise, no control over movements, etc. So you've got that aspect of it. And then you are, like you said, chucked in a van and then transported across the world with multiple other dogs in a cramped space. everyone's reeking of stress. Stress hormones are going everywhere. And then you're transported to a random place with things that you've never seen before and never encountered. Things like kettles and microwaves, washing machines, dishwashers, TVs, reflections, all that kind of stuff that you just take for granted, that we take for granted, and that our dogs that have been selectively bred, we can't take for granted that they understand that. And then you're just like, you're just there. Like, you've got no real kind of safety or support. You're not attached to anyone. You've got no secure base. Think about that from a human perspective. And actually, if you put that, like just saying it out loud, it's actually crazy. Like, how can we actually expect them to be okay? Like, it should be more of a rarity, a very, very uncommon thing that a dog is typically okay and just walks into the house and is fine. And I have seen that. Like, I've seen those unicorn dogs that have been adopted from abroad, that have no real experience of a home, and they just kind of trot in, super settled, like, and people are like,
Yeah.
"Why did you prepare me for the worst? Because this dog's absolutely fine." Like being gaslit by the dogs. But yeah, so if you think just saying that out loud, like, early disease, injury, busy shelter environment, shoved in a van, transported across the world, somewhere you have no idea where you are, people you have no idea who they are, and it's like off you go, and then you're expected to do all these things that you have no idea what they are, never been exposed to them. It's no wonder that these behaviors come out.
Yeah, and I think what the other thing that people hugely overlook is if you were to compare videos with the dogs that we rehome into this country versus actual free roaming street dogs, the amount that they choose to move away, change direction, avoid things, quite often they'll try to avoid conflict. They'll just sort of move
Yeah,
away from things, whereas we suddenly put them behind these concrete walls. And if they're not behind a concrete wall, they're in a car. And if they're not in a car, they're on a lead. And suddenly they've got absolutely no choice whatsoever. And, if you were surrounded by things that you found terrifying, then the last thing that you want to be is restricted and told to stay there.
yeah.
So, but I think there's been a disconnect somewhere. And I think it's getting better, but I think there was for a really long time a really bad disconnect about, well, these dogs are supposed to just come over and just like
Mm,
be grateful that they're here, sort of thing.
yeah.
Um, and a lot of people who have been very, very, very unprepared for these dogs. And it's not to slag off my clients. They like, some of them did a lot of research, but some of them were massively unprepared by their own admission.
Mm,
And I think for me, there's a lot of what's the word, responsibility on the charities that
yeah.
are not being honest and upfront about these dogs. So if somebody's listening and they've got, I don't know, Jerry coming over at the weekend from Romania, what would you say to prepare them?
Yeah, yeah, great question, great question. And there's some good points in there, which I'm sure we'll cover in a bit anyway. But yeah, like the preparation is one is a big one from the human side is that expectation that you just mentioned as well. So people should just get rid of any expectation that their dog is going to be like any dog that they may have encountered before. Because if they've never been around free roaming dogs or they've never been around street dogs or other people with street dogs, you can't really be prepared for that, right? So get rid of the expectations because that's just going to help you in the long run. If your expectations are on the floor, every good thing that happens, you're going to celebrate the absolute hell out of it. And that's what I tell people to do is celebrate those small wins as if they are absolutely groundbreaking because they actually are for these dogs. Be prepared to be very hands off is definitely the key one, I feel. Be prepared to play hard to get. This is what I always say to people play hard to get, let your dog come to you. Don't try and be like, I know they've had a traumatizing time, and you think that the way to help them through that is to coddle them and just to be all over them and, oh, my baby, and things like that. They don't want that. They want you to keep distance and they want to figure you out. So let them come to you. And then do not betray the trust that they put in you. Because when these dogs start to feel comfortable with you, they will start to show little inklings, little signs that they want to get to know you. They'll start air scenting you, or they'll start slightly moving a paw towards you, or sniffing around your legs, or walking where you just were. The worst thing you can do in that moment is to then kind of stop that motivation that they have by them being all over them and taking that sign as like the floodgates are open and now you can do absolutely everything you want with them. Like, just don't do that. Continue to let them make all the first moves. And if you can do that, that is going to set you up for success massively because one of the key like issues that happens is where people go too fast too soon. and they
Yeah.
misinterpret these signals and signs. And also, they've been told about the 333 rule, so they think after 3 days their dog is decompressed and fine, and they think definitely think within 3 weeks that their dog is completely settled into a routine when they haven't. So, like, just take it slow. Don't betray that trust. Take it easy. You've got all the time in the world, right? A lot of people, what's probably got the average age that people are getting? Probably around 2 to 4 years old. Probably the dogs that are coming over. You
Hmm.
can have another 10 to 15 years with this dog. So don't feel like you have to do everything in those first few weeks. Like, just take it easy and let it come. What you should also be prepared for, and this is, I guess we're going to talk about this in a minute. Actually, is being able to stay in contact with the rescue. And we can come bring this down to green flags and red flags of the rescue. But
Yeah.
having a support network, having the rescue there, or just on a WhatsApp chat or whatever, where you can just fire off. Is this normal? What should I be doing here? Because there's no such thing as a silly question. Like, everything is relevant, and with these dogs, the smallest thing can make the massive difference. So, having a support network there and being prepared to open up and bombard that rescue, as rightly you should be getting that support, where rightly you should be able to bombard them and getting their opinions on things and getting their guidance on things. So, yeah, that was kind of a long one, but yeah, be prepared to have no expectations, to be able to play hard to get, and also be prepared to let go of that Disney moment, because I think a lot of people have the idea that these dogs are super traumatized and this is the first time that they are going to feel love, and they're just going to let all their walls down and jump into your arms. It's not going to be like that. I mean, sometimes it may be, but again, it's very, very, very rare. But yeah, have that expectation down on the floor, play hard to get, and then take every day as it comes. Don't have any expectations about the 3 days, 3 weeks, anything like that. And then stay in touch with the rescue heavily.
Yeah, I think those are really, really good points. When you said about moving too fast, I just like, and again, this is no hate to any of my clients who have done this because I know that you mean the best in the world,
Yeah.
but the thing that makes my body turn inside out is when the dog comes home and day one they bath the dog. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just like, I'm sorry, guys. For the love of God, don't bath the dog. Just you're going to have to put up with
Yeah.
the wee wee smell.
Yeah.
If you can maybe wipe him down, amazing. But like, oh my God, can you imagine just being like restrained by somebody who doesn't speak your language, and
Yeah.
then you're all vulnerable and you're in a container. Oh God, it's just it's that, and it's the taking them for a walk on day one. It's just
Yes.
we 100% appreciate that it's done with the best will in the world. A good dog is well groomed, a good dog is looked after, a good dog has its nails clipped and has lovely walks and stuff, but that is just not what they need in that really early time period. Yeah, I think that those are all really good points that you've made. Um, so obviously neither of us are a vet, so I'm not expecting you to go into huge
Yeah.
detail with this next question, but I just wondered if sort of anecdotally you kind of have any kind of like medical, what am I trying to say? If there's kind of repeated medical concerns that you see quite frequently, that potentially it's worth people looking out for as well. Or just any
Yeah.
interesting stories about that sort of thing, really.
Yeah. I mean, a big one are previous injuries that have been allowed to kind of heal on their own.
Hmm.
There was numerous dogs actually that I've come across that have always had like maybe like what seems like a quirky behavior, not always necessarily a problematic behavior that comes out, or anything that's kind of jeopardizing anyone or putting anybody at risk, but can have like dogs can have these kind of like quirky behaviors, and people are like, oh, it's just a quirk. But then I've had, under further investigation, dogs have had previous fractures that have healed on their own, and they've just been like a mess with their limbs. Yeah, you get all the road traffic accidents and things like that. Dogs that have had,
Yeah.
and then also a lot of these dogs aren't exactly well put together. If you look at some of the dogs that look
Yeah.
like they should be a massive shepherd, and then the legs are about this big. Um,
Yeah. And the corgi got out someone's back garden at some point and did some
yeah,
dirty around Romania, yeah.
yeah. And always the Chihuahua. Like everyone's DNA test, it's always like there's a Chihuahua
Mm,
in there somewhere. Right? There's a rogue Chihuahua just
yeah.
going across the world. And I found that not even just in Romania, like in Thailand as well. Like there's always Chihuahua in the dogs.
Yeah, Chihuahuas are truly working really, really hard to repopulate the dog world. It's true.
They are.
Sorry, carry on.
No, they literally are. But yeah, because of that, you've got dogs of all different shapes and sizes put together in various different ways. And if you think about all the things that we try and provide for our dogs when we're here, obviously we know now, like the massive impact that pain discomfort has on dogs' behaviour. We're always shouting about having non-slip mats and ramps and things like that, and just trying to make everything as easy for our dogs as possible on their joints and really protecting their physical health. Well, our dogs don't have that in the shelters, right? Like, they don't have that same luxury. And, there's loads of early stuff that happens to them whilst they're developing as well, which can lead to kind of early arthritis, hip dysplasia, like saying patellas, like all sorts of different things. And, not only that, but there are a lot of dogs, unfortunately, and this is kind of like a thing that happens throughout the rescue world, but there are a lot of dogs that are being neutered extremely early.
Yeah.
And it's just, dogs that should be probably around, like 30, 35 kilo dogs, and should be waiting until full maturity to being neutered, and they're being neutered at sometimes like, really, really early months of their lives. And that's going to have a, not just an impact on their behavior, but their growth and development overall. So those are some of the key things that I see. And then, surprisingly, when you think street dogs, you think scavengers, but a lot of dogs from the streets have got gut issues. Like a lot of them have got different allergies and intolerances, and definitely, especially when I worked in rescue, we had so many dogs on specialized diets and all sorts because of different allergies that they had to various things. So yeah, those are the most common ones that I see.
Oh, you've just broken my heart with the neutering thing. I've got a client at the moment who he's the most traumatized little dog I've ever seen in my life. He's from Hungary, bless his little heart, and he was neutered at 3 months old. And it just, to give the listeners a clue, like the literature basically tells us that like they need to be fully formed. Luckily, he's a small dog, but like you say, behaviorally and anatomically, like I don't even know what havoc that's caused him. And it is really tricky. I volunteered in Sri Lanka, God, nearly 10 years ago now. It's scary. Time just goes by. Sorry,
No,
everyone. Yeah,
that's
volunteering in Sri Lanka, and I observed a spay and neuter clinic. And the lady that sort of showed me there on the day, she sort of said, "I need you to mentally prepare yourself because it's not like the UK." And she said, "But while this is going to look absolutely horrifying to you, this is a hugely important piece of work that we're doing, preventing breeding." Um, and yeah, basically, as soon as the puppy was, I would say 12 weeks, they were just
yeah, yeah,
neutering, yeah, everything. And it's a really tricky one because I said to her, who am I to judge? I come from a very privileged Western society where we don't have street dogs. So to me, this looks absolutely horrifying, but they're doing,
yeah.
such important work managing that population and disease and everything. Um, I also had one customer. I know I'm just talking about myself, but it's because I've got so many brilliant
Go for
people
it, go
that
for it, go for
that
it.
I just find so fascinating. And Rosie is like the best story I ever heard. She was a bit older when she was rehomed from Romania. Normally, they like people kind of want the young ones, don't they?
Yeah.
I think she was like 5 or 6, and she had half of her muzzle missing. Um, and when I asked her I asked them where the muzzle had gone. Someone in the village had seen it happen, so they know that she fought a bear
Oof.
to defend a litter of puppies. And so she was missing like
Jeez.
half her muzzle. But she was so gentle, like she was super, super chilled out, like relaxed dog. We just did kind of like
Yeah,
some loose lead walking a recall and stuff.
yeah,
Um, but sometimes you really are getting a dog that has
yeah,
been through some shit when they come over to the UK.
yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. You're so right. I actually got real recently, just like a fun one, and it was you know, when people like wonder why their dogs like Romanian rescues are like barking at the door and stuff, and I just stitched together all these clips of these dogs like fighting off bears and wolves and all sorts of stuff, like absolutely crazy. And you made a really good point there about the sterilization, because it is so crucial and it's so important for the countries with the stray dog populations. I almost wish that there was a way to, and maybe this will happen in the future, I hope so, that the dogs that are going to be relocated back to the streets or are going to, I don't know, maybe they're not suitable for rehoming at all, maybe they're going to live in a sanctuary, that those dogs are, they're neutered, right, and that's all good, and they kind of like this to stop the breeding issue. And then the dogs that are real candidates for being adopted out to various places, that they're able to go on a extended period where they don't have to be neutered because their goal is not to go back to the street. So I always wish that could be a thing. Maybe that will be a thing in the future.
Yeah.
Maybe there will be the resources to distinguish and not just have to do it all in one batch. Because like I said, it's hard, right? And I guess as you have in that, we could have the idea that this dog isn't going to be adopted, but that they are going to be adopted. Like, there's all sorts of different nuances to it, obviously. That's me talking through rose-tinted glasses, being like, hey, why can't we just solve this? But, it would be good to do that.
I mean, if the hormonal implant was cheaper, then maybe
Yeah.
there'd be a way that they could even just give it, temporarily to a young dog until they're fully formed and they can be fully castrated. I don't know. I don't have the answer, but it's really interesting, and I think I would encourage anyone who's got any sort of dog from overseas to have a look at the sort of things that they go through and what the charities are having to do and contend with, and because I think a lot of people really don't see that side of
No.
it. Um, so I want to go less onto the behavior of the dogs now and more about the actual like rehoming experience and the
Sure.
charities. Um, and to be completely transparent, like I have volunteered for these organizations myself and I have a lot of love for them and support, but I also have strong reservations about a lot of things as well. So I'm hoping we can have a nice balanced discussion without me offending anyone, but we'll see. Um, so one thing that I do find is that some of the, I guess, lesser experienced rescues, lesser equipped rescues, quite often rehome to unsuitable homes, in my experience.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know whether you had the same thing and how often you're sort of involved in having to make that decision. Okay, this home just isn't right for the dog, and potentially a second rehoming for that dog, or whether it's just me having really bad luck.
No, no, no. I think we're definitely going to be on. I think we're actually going to be on the same page about a lot of these things. I was very fortunate that when I first started working in rescue with a rescue that specialised in dogs from Romania, that we had physical kennel. We were a physical rescue centre. We just had partners in Romania, and the dogs that were chosen for the candidates to come to us were dogs that were maybe older, needed extra veterinary care, and were kind of handpicked for their suitability to be adopted. And it was a pretty big project that was it wasn't just us. There were other reputable shelters as well. But what would happen was those dogs would come over, and then they would come to our rescue, and then they would stay for a mandatory period of time before they even were put up on the website. So they had to be thoroughly assessed by us, also have a thorough medical assessment as well, carry out anything that was needed, go through behavior and training programs, like all that kind of stuff. So I was very fortunate, and then because I was part of the adoptions as well, I was able to do that adoption process from start to finish. So I was able to, people put an application form for a dog, I called them up, and I used to be like super blunt, like super like just so upfront and honest, like almost in a way like trying to put people off the dog just to really test
Yeah.
to see, if it was the right fit. And then from there they had, the home check, and then they would have a series of visits depending on the dog. Like some dogs would be maybe 2 visits, some dogs would be 10. If they had resident dogs, it adds an extra layer. But it was all done in a very organized way, and I was very fortunate to be exposed to it in that way. Where I was exposed to things where it wasn't so great was where during lockdown, all transports from the partner shelter stopped, so we weren't getting the dogs, but we had lots of empty kennels, and we found that we were getting loads of emails from people that had adopted dogs from, say, less prepared charities with no rescue backup or anything whatsoever.
Yeah.
So, and we were in a position where, we had dogs from different places, so we were specialized in that, and then also we could take those dogs. But it was there where I saw like, wow, like these dogs have been through it, because actually when you go to the shelters like you would have been to and things like that as well, actually when you go to, and I just got back from Romania, when you go to the shelters and you see the dogs there, it's actually surprising how many you can like go in with, and actually like how like they're not all just trying to like rip your face off. Whereas you think when
Yeah.
they're in the UK, when we're contacted, it is because they are trying to rip people's faces off. And you think, when you
Yeah.
go to the source, you think, wow, all these dogs are probably going to be like terrifying. I'm not going to be able to go in with any of them. But it's actually when they are transported to the UK and they go into unsuitable homes. And this, again, it's not the fault of the adopters here. I always say it's the fault of the organisations that aren't preparing people. This is a separate conversation if the people have been prepared and they've just obviously done whatever they want. But that period of time that they spend in an unsuitable home, like, really can make them like boomerang dogs. I've seen dogs like go in and
Mm.
out of like 4 or 5 different homes, because of the bad experience they had in their first one is just going to set the tone for the rest of the time. So definitely in my time in rescue, I saw we used to call them boomerang dogs. And and it's a funny story. Not funny for the people, obviously, but like when these dogs would do something, maybe like lunge at someone or something like that, and the people were like, "I'm bringing this dog back." Like the dog's face when they turn back up to the shelter and they kind of like just trot back in. They're like, "Hey, I'm home." like,
Yeah, literally. God, why do you send me there? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I don't now. I advise a couple rescues, and I help out a few rescues now and a few charities to kind of like give them my opinion and my advice on how they can stop getting dogs becoming boomerang dogs, and helping people really hammer home to people like what it is like to have a dog from abroad and not kind of selling a dream and stuff like that. So that's what I really focus on now. But yeah, back in my time in rescue, I'd find myself involved in returns to rescue, but I would say it was more just due to sometimes it doesn't work out. We would always have a home trial period, so it was kind of like if you adopt a dog from the UK as well, it would be okay. It just didn't work out
Yeah.
for XYZ reasons. But I would say with my private clients, I have helped people find suitable places for their dogs where they have adopted from somewhere, they've had no rescue backup, they haven't had the support, they have not been prepared, and they're contacting me on discovery calls even to just to figure out if this is actually worth going through the behavior modification process, because it actually might not be the right environment for that dog whatsoever. And I've actually had to help people with that and send messages of support to the organizations they adopted from. Yeah, I do see that. I do see that happening. Not loads, thankfully, but I do see it happening probably more often than I'd like to.
Yeah. I think it's really important if anyone's listening to this and they've been through that experience or they're considering that maybe they aren't the right fit for that dog, but they've really tried, that it's not a failure on their part.
No,
Because
no,
often a lot of these dogs don't get a trial, right? So
yeah,
it's almost just like throw it at the wall and see if it sticks. And sometimes it just doesn't. And yeah, I've worked with clients recently who I just know, this dog needs to be with another dog. That's what's going to
yeah, yeah.
make or break this relationship. And those are the sort of things that only, I guess, behavior and training professionals can tell these people. And it's really hard because I know that a lot of these charities think that they're doing a good thing.
Mm.
um but I am sort of, I mean, I wouldn't like to put a percentage on it, but I would say something like 50% of the dogs that are brought over here were just happier on the street where you left them, just sunning
Yeah,
themselves in Cyprus rather than
yeah,
being in a one-bedroom flat in London. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
it's
100%.
it's really, really tricky. And like you say, and then when there's no rescue backup, and I worked at Dogs Trust for 2 years, and the amount of times that we would be asked to basically, take the dog off them, and we couldn't, and then they're stuck, and it's just yeah. I think that I really recommend doctors is I've experienced quite a few of the, like we say, less equipped organisations, then blaming them, passing the blame to
Yeah,
them, and then making them feel
yeah,
incompetent and that sort of thing.
yeah.
It's just not fair.
It's a huge red flag of mine. When there is, I've been conversing with another trainer recently because she had a street dog case. Well, it was a foster. It was a foster, and it wasn't working out. This being in the foster, but the abuse that was given, not just to the trainer but to the fosterer, like that is a massive red flag for me, because that just says like steer clear. And I actually ask, if I see that, I always like just kind of like write the names down or just make a note or ask people to send me over like what the rescue is, because I want to go through their pages. And also because people will say to me like, I want to adopt from abroad, and I'll just always say like, here's the green flags, here's the red flags, etc. But I always be like, I want to steer people clear of, if they mention like a certain rescue to me, I'll be like, actually I think maybe that's one that's on my list.
Yeah, on the blacklist, yeah.
Yeah,
So, I mean, that was kind of the next point was what I'll let you start and then because I just get excited about this topic, so I'll let you start and then
yeah.
I'll chip in. So what are your sort of like green flags versus red flags for if somebody is listening to this and they're like, no, I'm really certain that a street dog is the right thing for me. How do they find the right organization, the right dog, and how do they stay clear of those wrong decisions?
Yeah, yeah. Well, massive one. I think we just went through a couple there actually. Like rescue backup. Like make sure that there is rescue backup. If there's rescue backup offered, and they say, for whatever reason, we'll be able to take the dog back. We'll be able to set them up somewhere where they suitable where they can go until they find a new home. That is like the. Just get that. If you don't check for anything else, please make sure you check for that because
Yeah, just
as a wolf,
non-negotiable.
yeah, non-negotiable because you will like if you're in that situation where there's no rescue backup and you're in a house with a dog that you are scared of and a dog that is dangerous, like that is like even thinking about it just gives me the shivers. Like it's just like thinking of
Hmm.
people being in those situations. People who aren't trained like we're trained, like it's yeah, that's going to be super overwhelming. That's the type of stuff that will put you off adopting a dog ever for life. If you go through
Hmm.
that. So
Hmm.
rescue backup. What you want to look for as well is like upfront honesty on their pages, and also go through their pages to make sure they're not shaming anyone. That's always a good one as well. Go
Hmm.
through their socials, which I'll talk about in a second, but going through their websites and making sure there aren't these kind of like a roundabout ways of saying a dog is reactive. Oh, can be choosy with other dogs, like the dog's reactive, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, takes not trusting, but after you've kind of achieved that trust, you'll be bonded for life. Okay, so the dog's either shy
Doesn't like
around
people.
people and
Yeah.
shut down around people, or isn't going to let people in the house, right? So then we've got to be saying these things as they are. Like you can say like on the bios, and this is what I used to do is help like write profiles and things like that. You can say on the bios like currently the team has assessed this dog and she shows some reactivity towards dogs, but through our support and putting you in touch with a trusted professional, we can help you through this. Like, we will support you every step of the way. So, because there are lots of people out there who are accepting of that and are fine with that and would be like, okay, as
Hmm.
long as I have some support, I'm happy to go through it. Which actually leads me on to the rescue should be providing you with some professional support. So, there's access to people like ourselves. So, I'm in contact with a few different rescues where I offer discounted packages to their adopters, and I'll offer resources that I will give them like free resources that they can pass on to their adopters, and I always tell them to pass my number on, and they can do things in that way. So being provided with a professional is another key thing that I love because rescue people in the rescue organization and the good rescue charities will admit this. They'll know that they're not trainers and they're not behaviorists. They know that
Hmm.
they're not in that, and they will outsource that to people that they trust. So that's another good green flag to look for, that you will have professional support. Definitely. So going through their socials and going through their profiles and their websites, you will be able to see really good information on the dogs, not just from the write-ups they have, but through pictures and videos. Like videos are so good at looking for how these dogs, where they are, how these dogs are interacting with other dogs, how these dogs are interacting with people, the conditions that they are in, their backstories, their histories, how people are interacting with them. You can get so much information from that. Like, you want to be checking. I always say to people, check if they've got any footage of these dogs walking on harnesses and leads, because a lot of dogs will come over and people don't think about, oh, I've never actually seen the dog on the lead before. And then you've got a whole process to go through when that dog gets to
Yeah.
your home. Whereas if you see them going on group walks with other dogs and they've got well fitted harnesses and you've got people walking them on lead and things like that, you know that those dogs have been trained to walk on them, or at least been kind of conditioned slightly to them, and they're not going to be such an alien thing that's going to save you a load of work. Because, like we discussed previously, the on-lead aspect is such a contributing factor to some of these dogs' behavioural difficulties.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
if they've got some experience of being on lead and have been exposed to some things whilst being on lead, even though granted it's not going to be in the same way that probably we would do it, like there's still going to be like a small kind of like an advantage that you'll have. So lastly, very important. So last but not least, is everything to do with disease testing, because like that is
Mm.
gonna obviously we have like DEFRA and stuff, right? So we have conditions which these charities have to meet for the dogs to actually come in. but just making sure that you're double checking that everything, like dogs have been vaccinated, they've had the infectious diseases such as brucellosis, leishmania, they've got all those tests, they can provide evidence of those tests. That's just going to save you hassle when you go to the vets for the first time here. I've had some sad stories of dogs that we welcomed into the rescue that had come from other places when I was working in rescue in the UK. Where the dogs, had actually, had like full blown brucellosis, and they would not be able to live like a full life because of the restrictions and regulations that they would have on them. Paired that with being incredibly shut down and traumatized because of their life, they would, if they were to, stay in a rescue environment, they would just live in a corner for the rest of their lives. If they were to go to a home, they'd probably be shit scared of the people and would live in a corner of the home for the rest of their lives, never having any true socialization or anything like that. So yeah, diseases, rescue backup, professional support, no shaming, and making sure that you go through photos and videos and take most of the information from there. And any contact that you have with the rescue, if you ask a direct question, is this dog reactive? You should be getting a upfront, straightforward answer. You shouldn't be going, well, sometimes depending on blah blah blah. Like, no, is this dog reactive or are they not reactive? Like, just say it upfront.
Yeah, depending on whether there's a full moon and whether Gemini is in Saturn, Perry can sometimes bark at big fluffy white dogs. Yeah, it doesn't
Yeah,
need to be like that. And I think uh possibly if you're worried about any of that stuff, just get it in writing. And then,
yeah,
someone who's working with you, like myself or Toby, can help. It's the only thing I wanted to add to what you said. Not all professionals, we say this all the time, guys, not all
yeah, yeah.
professionals are made equal. Let's make sure that they're using science-based positive methods only, because the only thing worse than a balanced dog trainer is a balanced dog trainer working with a traumatized animal. So
So
let's
so right.
also not do that.
so so right.
Um,
So right.
I saw as well you read or you shared The Body Keeps the Score recently. And that's my like number one read for anybody who has any sort of traumatized dog or animal. But when I was reading this book, I was like, this speaks to me a lot about these overseas
Yeah.
rescue and the physiological changes they go through as a result of what they've gone through in life, really. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
so that's
Yeah.
a recommendation there as well. Um,
Sure.
so why I mean this is kind of a little bit of a segue, but just to kind of round off getting your opinion, why do you think more people choose to go, or not more people, but a big demographic of people choose to go for these rescues from overseas rather than a charity like Dogs Trust or, their local round the corner dog shelter? Because
Yeah.
you've probably had conversations with clients much like I have, and yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, yeah. It's I think it's often, well, it shouldn't really be, but often it's an easier pathway to getting a dog. Because there are some people, and sometimes it's just like age demographics, where, or like you say, like bigger rescues where there isn't always the time to go through every adoption kind of form
Hmm.
personally. Almost like if people fit into a certain demographic, it's almost like, okay, well, we don't have a dog for you. And I think people get really disheartened. And I've
Hmm.
spoken to people who've tried for years to get dogs, say, from the UK, and they've just felt like it's just impossible. Usually due to age, I'd say, or not having a garden. And then they go, okay, cool, I've tried this. Um, Go on Google, adopt a dog. Okay, oh, these rescues have popped up. Or one of my friends got one. My friend's got a street dog from wherever. And the process is really easy. They just applied for the dog, they had a quick phone call, and next thing they know, they met on the M25 and the dog was there. It was passed into their arms and kind of off they go. There was no repeated visits. And this is also the thing with humans, from human nature and psychology, is like often people love to take the path of least resistance. So, you go to, say they go to a charity in the UK that says, okay, we've got to have you visit the dog for a minimum of 5 times, and we're located about 2-3 hours from you. You're going to be able to do that each week. People can be like, nah, because I can just order
Hmm.
one online and they can be shipped to my door, and I can just have them in my home, and and that's that. I don't have to jump through hoops. So yeah, sometimes I just think it's the ease. I think it's the ease, but then also that there are some people I would say, and this may seem extreme, are sometimes discriminated against just due to their demographic and what they can offer. Like I worked in a smaller shelter where I was going through each application form and I was able to go through each and every person and call each and every person and get a bit more of their details and their history. And I rehomed dogs to top floor apartments who gave their dog the absolute fantastic life, and actually overcompensated because they didn't have a garden. They would actually they go above and beyond. Whereas
Hmm.
I know that some people would, I know of some people now, like, haven't adopted a dog who have dogs, like just through like, connections and people that I know that just often don't want to do things with their dogs. So they think I've got a garden, so I'll let them chill there. Like that's all they need. Whereas the people who don't have one will go above and beyond. Obviously, that's nuanced as well because there are definitely instances where people are just terrible to their dogs and won't do anything if they live in a top floor apartment and it's harder for them to get out. So it's very nuanced, of course, but that is what I feel, and that's just from what I've seen from people, what I've heard from people of like I've tried to adopt, tried to adopt. Can't get one, but it's easier for me to adopt from abroad. The channeling is easier to get it, and like I said, it's easier to have them delivered to the door, or just go meet them on the motorway, which should be a red flag in itself, people. Meeting a dog at the service station should not be the way that you start your relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. If it jumps out of a car boot with no collar on, then it's probably a bad idea. Yeah, I also because the people that come to people like myself and you obviously care deeply. Often I
Yeah,
find it's the people with the biggest hearts that want to do the nicest thing that end up with the dogs that just ruin their lives. Like, I don't, there's no
yeah,
other way to put it. Do you know what I mean? Because I
yeah,
think some people see dogs that have been through absolute hell and just think, oh, well, I'll be the one that can save it. And it's got two legs and it's
yeah,
got brain damage and it's horribly traumatized. And I think I love that quality in people, but at the same time, I do think that if anyone's listening to this and they're considering getting an overseas rescue, don't make life harder for yourself than it has to be, because at the end of the day, if that dog really is that broken, it's not going to last in a home anyway.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, I think that that's a pull uh for a lot of people, and I totally understand that. I have one customer in London, and they won't mind me talking about it because I fucking love this dog so much. He was rescued from a slaughterhouse in China, and like as soon as they heard where he'd come from, they were like, "Yep, send him over." Like,
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely,
yeah,
box it up, send it over. Because, like, how could you turn away a dog that has been through, literally been on the
yeah.
killing floor? But luckily, he is one of those dogs that he's a Shiba. So he just walked into the apartment, flopped on his back, and just went, great, I'm here, feed me, life is sorted. But yeah, so I think that and this kind of leads me on to my next question. And where I feel so conflicted is I know that a lot of people think, oh my God, dog on the street, that's an awful life. Um, you know, let's get it homed. And I know that some of the charities do this. They think, I can't bear to see dogs on the street. Um, and for anyone that has that sort of opinion, I would really encourage them to do some reading about free ranging dogs and the communities of these animals, particularly in Asia. And I don't know, have you ever been to Istanbul?
I haven't actually, no.
That was the real eye opener for me because I'd seen in places like Sri Lanka and Thailand, where obviously financially it's a struggle, and disease is much more rampant and stuff, and the dogs there are just motorcycle accidents, and you do obviously see those dogs and you think, oh my God, get this dog off the street, it needs vet care, like, let's get it into a home. And then you go to Istanbul and all the dogs are fat and they've got these little tags in their ears because they're all vaccinated, and they're just like on their back in the sun, just having the best time, whatever. And I think it's important for people to remember that, like, being on the street doesn't equal bad quality of life.
Yeah,
It's really
yeah,
variable depending on the dog, the location, what the government is like, because some countries take a lot better care of their animals than others. Um, yeah, so are you? It's a very, very bad interview technique to try and lead you into a point, but I feel like you're probably going to say the same as me. Do you think that it's quite varied in terms of whether uh, it's an ethical dilemma to take them off the street or not?
yeah. And I've always been very vocal about this, to be honest. I've always had the same opinion. and it was through my work with the dogs that were like boomerang dogs that had come from other places and they rescue backup and stuff like that. You got to a point where it's just like, wow, this dog would have just thrived being on the streets. And then when I was fortunate enough to go, and it's funny you say Thailand because yeah, Thailand in general can be like horrific kind of conditions for dogs in various places. But I was very fortunate to be on Koh Lanta, working with Lanta Animal Welfare, where they have been there for the past like 20 plus years, and because of the impact, and this is why I'm so pro like solving the issue in the country and like not just export, because I've seen it work. Like on Koh Lanta, rabies eradicated, all the dogs are sterilized, majority of them, probably say like, I think it's around like 90% are sterilized. They are always working to sterilize. And the coexistence between locals and dogs is phenomenal. Like you see, like what you saw in Istanbul, you see dogs with the marks, they've got their tattoos in their ears saying that they've been sterilized. They're all fat, they've got collars on, they free roam all day. People know generally where those dogs belong to. Like they'll have like shops and restaurants that they belong to. And just the general kind of attitude around dogs, like locals have now learned to live with dogs and no longer scared of them.
Hmm.
And they actually love the dogs because they find that, Westerners generally love dogs. So, when Westerners come to their restaurants and are on their beach bars and they have a fat, friendly dog there to welcome them, it gets more people in, So
Yeah.
I've seen the success of changing things there, like education, sterilization, rehabilitation, and also adopting out locally. And this is something that I haven't really seen much in Romania. So I was recently in a shelter in
Mm.
Romania, and I'm going to put up some reels about this. So anybody who's watching, if you go on my Instagram, Crazy Dog Training, you will see reels about this shelter that I'm about to put up. Probably think the only one that I've seen actually, they adopt only in Romania. They do not do exporting, which is really like strange for like a Romanian rescue because
Mm.
in Romania, yes, there are a lot of people who are horrendous to dogs. There are horrendous organizations and corruption across the board, all the way higher up. Like it's horrible. Like there's kill shelters. Like those dogs are in some of the worst conditions ever. So it's usually they're like, okay, well, we can't put them back out on the streets because they'll just get caught again by people like dog catchers. They'll like take them, kill them, get loads of money for them, and keep building up stuff like that, more corruption, etc. But this shelter were they're doing sterilization programs, and they were also just adopting out locally. So they were
Love.
educating the
Mm.
community. Saying to people like, if you want to adopt a dog, we've got some great dogs here, like absolutely fantastic dogs. You can come and see them, you can spend time with them, you can build a relationship with them. We'll teach you some more about them, as well as going into the schools and inviting the community to the shelter and stuff like that. Like really just trying to be pioneers. So like being like, we don't need to send the dogs elsewhere. Actually, we can solve it here and now, and that's going to be way more sustainable. And then, in the same breath, though, like some of the dogs I worked with in Thailand, or some dogs that I work with from various other countries, had such like horrific things done to them, but they wouldn't survive out on the streets. And then you kind of enter
Mm.
the ethical dilemma where, do you then say, okay, this dog's written off, this dog who's absolutely lovely and loves people and could have a really great life if they were just taken to a different country or taken elsewhere. You're then like, it's nuanced, right? So there's like there's a few different things that you can do, and I think ultimately the goal is everything happens in situ. We put a main focus on everything in situ. The dogs that are requiring help, that can't find it in situ, that need specialist care or need to go abroad, like absolutely fine. I don't think rescue should have borders. I don't think that there should be, like just because a dog's from a different country, same as how we are here. How we'd adopt a dog from Dr. Ross or something, for example. I think we should still be able to give those dogs a chance that need it. But we do need a much more thorough assessment process for the dogs, and we should definitely be putting dogs back where they came from as the first priority, because they will, like you said, they thrive, and it doesn't look like our picture of thriving, but actually if you think about it, these dogs have so much freedom. They come and go as they please, they move away from the things that scare them, and they live a very natural life. And actually, what do we do for our dogs? Even though we say we're a nation of dog lovers, we have super high expectations of our dogs. Like we go through social media trends. We want our dogs to look like this and look like that, or behave like this, behave like that. And actually, we take dogs away from being dogs. And actually, like if people go and study and watch free range dogs, go to countries with free range dogs, you will see natural dogs in action, and you will see how happy they can be. Yes, they may look mangy. They may not look like a picture of health, and they may be missing some fur and have some battle scars. But some of them are living absolutely fantastic lives, and to restrict them to their one bed apartment in London, is
It's
going to
not the
be
right
really
thing.
detrimental. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think that, yeah, 100% agree with you on that. I think anybody who's listening who whatever position you're in, whether you already have an overseas rescue and you're like, I wouldn't do it again, or you're considering it but you're not sure, or whatever, I would say the one thing that you can never, ever, ever go wrong with is donating to a charity that does catch, vaccinate, neuter, release.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that is an amazing cause, whatever country it is in. So if you want to do something for a charity or something and you're not sure where to go, any of those charities that put dogs back on the street, but after they've been spayed,
yeah,
neutered, and vaccinated, that's the best thing that we can do for these dogs, 100%, aside from reaching out to the correct ones and actually putting them in homes.
yeah.
But obviously, it's not always as straightforward to do that, whereas you can jump online and donate some money to one of these charities very quickly. Um, okay, so I'm going to round up now,
Cool.
Toby. Just the last question is, what if you could tell the listeners one thing to take away from this conversation, what would
Yeah.
it be?
So it would be, don't be scared of adopting from abroad. Like, I know sometimes we can be quite heavy on like leave the dogs there and things like that. Like, adopting from abroad can be one of the most rewarding experiences, but you have to be in that position to do so. You need to be able to honestly say to yourself, can I change my life to suit this dog? Can I sacrifice things for 10 plus years that I want, that maybe the dream I have with the dog, I have to sacrifice that for about 10 plus years because I need to revolve my life around this dog. If you can, then by all means, great. Look for those reputable charities. Follow the points that we've said, like, and be the people who can adopt these dogs, because it does take a certain kind of mindset to be able to do that. And that's not to shame anybody who's like adoption has failed or anything like that. Like, it's not easy. That's the thing. Like, take away from this that it is not easy. It can be super, super rewarding, but not everybody's in a situation to do so. Not everybody has the environment to do so. And ultimately, you will be doing yourself a disservice as well as the dog if you just kind of try and fit a square peg in a round hole. So make sure that you have done lots of thorough research. Don't go down it just because it's the easy route. You've struggled to get a dog elsewhere and you think now this is the route to go. Find street dog professionals. Find people like us that are having this conversation and being upfront and honest. Like we're saying, adopt some, leave some there. Like we are people who love dogs and want the best for dogs and never want to see a dog in any kind of trauma or anything like that. And we are saying that for the good of the dogs, some of them should stay there, some of them should come over. But we have to, thoroughly screen the rescues that do so. So that's going to be, my takeaway message is you can support from afar. You can still support these dogs and help them have really rich, fulfilled lives in other countries. And you can also help out dogs that, that are looking for a home. And another thing that I would suggest is, as a last one, sorry, I could ramble on about this
That's
forever, but
okay,
so
you're
many
fine.
takeaway messages. But if you are looking to adopt from abroad, seek out rescues that maybe already have dogs in the country. Right? If you want to help a street dog that's been through something traumatic, search the rescue's website, and if they offer rescue backup, they will have dogs in the country already that maybe are in foster or maybe are in kennels and are looking for a home. You're going to have a much higher chance of success because you'll be able to meet the dog. You can arrange visits. You can grow a bond with that dog before they come into your home. And that is just going to set you up for success. And you know as well, for a definite fact, that the rescue has rescue backup.
Yes, and also, I don't know how you might do that, like, I find you well, charity work,
I've
make
just
sure.
got feedback coming through your thing. Hold on, 2 secs. Let's go. Okay.
Are we good?
Yeah, it's good. Sorry, you have to repeat what you just
That's
said.
okay. No, no, it's fine. What did I just say? Oh, I was just going to say, the other thing is, people like myself and Toby will often, give our opinions. Well, I don't want to speak for you, but I certainly will. If any of my clients have been looking at a profile or an organization or don't know what a word means, reach out and ask those questions. So Toby, just to sign you off, would you like to tell the listeners where they can find you if they want to work with you, and where they can sort of follow your socials, and if you have anything to plug, like any webinars or courses or anything, the floor is yours. Go for it.
Cool, thank you very much. So you can find me at Crazy Dog Training. I am more active on Instagram than I am on Facebook, but I am on Facebook as well. I'm definitely not active on TikTok, although I do have a TikTok profile. I just don't use it. It is usually a cesspit for anything dog related. but yeah, you can find me at crazydogtraining.co.uk as well. You'll find all my programs on there, both in person and online. If you are looking for online training, I cover worldwide. All the fees are on there, all the information that you will need. But I think something that I'd like to plug, based on the conversation that we've had and the topic that we've been discussing today, is that I do offer out a free discovery call, which is no pressure, no commitment. You don't have to use this if you're just thinking about working with me. If you listen to this podcast and you think, wow, I'd really love to bounce something off you that I've seen from a rescue, or I've had thoughts about adopting from abroad, use a discovery call for that. Like, there is no rules on that discovery call. If you just want to have a 20-minute chat with a professional who has experience working in rescue, doing adoptions, working with dogs from various different parts of the world, you can jump on that call, have a conversation with me, and we will hash it out. Again, I will give my honest opinion. I will point you in the right direction. I will tell you what to look for. I'll break anything down for you. So that's what I'd love to plug, actually, is that free discovery call for anybody who's thinking about adopting from abroad.
Amazing. Do you do financial support, free life advice, coaching, driving lessons? I don't know. You say free 20-minute discovery call. I'm gonna make use of your time.
Well, to be fair, as you will be aware, we do turn into human therapists a lot of the time. So yeah, if you just want to have a chat, yeah, feel free to
Yeah.
book in a call.
Oh God, you're gonna regret saying that. All right, I will let you go. Thank you so much for your time, Toby. It was lovely chatting with you.
No, thank you. It was absolutely fantastic. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.